stage of his career, when he was kind of around 20 and he had some more experience, he was still easily young enough. And then you saw that he really does, have some good racecraft and some good pace, and that he deserves to be there on merit. And it's just been overshadowed by someone trying to push him up the ladder too soon. A bit like we could say with Lance Stroll, who I still argue should have done a year in F2 last year rather than being, learning his trade in Formula One, because people don't give you the time. And I think both drivers have the potential to be stronger in the future, but right now they're far from what they could be, and they're not learning so much from each other, and they're within a team that is struggling. And I think it was a bit of a sign that Williams just couldn't attract anyone of the level that they really needed. Felipe had already left and then was brought back in, but they clearly weren't going to build a team around Felipe moving forward. And they obviously weren't convinced about Kubica either at the time. So it was kind of putting it all together. And money obviously plays a factor, but they felt that Srotkin would do a good enough job and bring the money. What you've then got to do is use that money well. And just at the moment, it looks like that car isn't good enough. And that means they haven't used the money well enough. And that's when you start looking around at, well, how's the team being managed? What's going to change radically? They have a new head of aero. They've got Paddy Lowe. That's why to me it's so crucial that it's during the year. They can't write this year off and say we'll get it better next year, because there's nothing that convinces you that they will get it better next year. And you need to convince a lot of people. You've got to convince drivers. You've got to convince sponsors. You've got to convince your own team personnel that it's going to be better next year to get them working at 100%. So they need to. They can't afford to write the year off. And there's some very clever people in Formula One. I'm pretty sure they know that. So I think this is just a struggling Williams right now, and it could be a very, very difficult year for them if they don't really get their act together in turning this current car around during the season.
As I think I mentioned in the 2017 season review, and I'm sure many people said this in their various written or podcast versions of reviewing, Lance Stroll sent a very polite middle finger to many of us, myself included, who said, this kid doesn't have what it takes to cut it, will be an embarrassment, etc., etc. He proved to be anything but last year. And I'm curious, Chris, if you think, considering he was a rookie, despite having one of the more intensive rookie season preparation programs in modern history, if not all of history, how much headroom do you think we have to see from this kid in season 2? We assume there's plenty. He only has 1 year of experience, but was the kid showing us the majority of what he had last year, and therefore maybe there isn't a ton more to expect from him? Or do you think, boy, this kid might actually be a real gem, despite his father's wealth and having his path eased into the sport?
I lean more towards the latter, actually. I mean, I don't sit here right now and think we're looking at a future world champion, but I do think he has a big room for growth. And it's a difficult one, because I understand people's sort of apathy for the opportunities that someone like Lance has had and the way that the money has opened so many doors. But he still then has to sort of capitalise on that. And he'd be a fool not to make the most of those opportunities to then make him a better driver. And in 5 years' time, he's going to have huge experience in a number of different F1 cars based on what he could afford to test. But what that teaches him, then when he's in a race situation, he's going to be going up against guys that he's just going to have some better knowledge, or he's going to have a better understanding or a better feeling of the car, because he's used that money to give himself that opportunity. And you can't blame him for doing that when he's able to do it. And I think that will show that he will keep improving. But the flashes that we saw of last year were enough to convince me that, I actually had a bet with someone at the start of the year, a small one, and I said, by the end of this season, I think this other person will admit that Lance deserved a seat on the grid. And he did. I won that bet because there were enough flashes where you go, if you forgot about the money, you go, the Monza qualifying performance, the Baku podium, but there were other sort of strong sixth places. I think Mexico might have been sixth. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. He had some really strong drives that were enough to go, yeah, like if he can do that consistently, he's going to be a really good all-round driver. And I mean, we've seen him at Daytona as well. He's no slouch, and he'll drive different cars. Yes, he's got the ability to do it and the funds to do it, but that will, it's like you invest in a company or you invest in a team development. And, if a team pays £500 million for the best wind tunnel and end up with the best car, you don't criticise them for spending the most money. You say, you've got the facilities that allow you to create the best car. Lance has got the facilities that allows him to drive more and get more experience and therefore be a better driver at the end of it. So I do think he will keep improving and we'll see him around for quite a while. And how far he can go, that is the big unknown, because there are certain drivers like a Max Verstappen where you just see a natural talent there that is astonishing. And Max obviously still had good opportunities through his dad, but there's just certain things he does and you think, that's a future world champion. With Lance, you've seen less of that, but he's going to buy himself the time to show that if it's in there. So no, I think he's kind of an investment for the future for Williams. I think he'll be there for a while. It's just whether he's ever got the machinery to score bigger results than we've seen from the team over the last few years.
Here's a new bet. Do we think that by the end of 2018, Lance will have demonstrated a compelling or interesting personality that would make the average fan give a damn? Or whether we're still checking to see if he's a robot and searching for the hidden circuitry personality will be the one that shines through. Granted, I think we both might place a bet in the same direction here, but that's the only thing that I see limiting him on the grand scale of relevance in Formula One. We know that if he's winning, then personality shortcomings or lack of personality demonstrations are often forgiven. But if you're not winning and you leave people with very little sense of who you are, if you can pay to be there, that's great, but you tend not to be remembered very positively by history.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think he will start to loosen up a bit this year. I mean, I saw it in Daytona, where he was just a little bit more relaxed and he gave some really good answers to some questions and was very honest. And there was just I think just as his confidence grows, that he belongs in Formula One, and he's not wary of what he says because people jump on it so quickly. That only comes with time. So, if he has say he puts in another few good performances in the first half of this year, and he's getting far fewer questions about money and his future or his potential, then he's just going to have a bit more self-confidence to show a little bit more of what he is. But, he's still a young kid, and there's a lot of people that are maybe Formula One fans that aren't in touch with similar interests of his or stuff like that. I mean, I follow all the drivers on social media, and you do see their differences, and so many of them, I don't know, like their fashion tastes or their musical tastes or where they want to go on holiday and stuff. It's very unique to each person, and they get into Formula One and they do see it's a massive business. And at times it can be very corporate, and they just go default. Don't annoy anyone. Don't stand out too much, especially early in their career. So I think he'll show a few more flashes of that, and especially if he's got a good teammate battle. I think if him and Sorokin is quite a good one. Neither of them are the most charismatic of guys, and I think Lance is the guy that's probably going to see. Well, I can drop a joke in every now and then, and I'm going to look like a superstar compared to Sergey, who is very straight. He's a really nice guy, and he's very clever, very intelligent, but his delivery is not exactly enthralling. So I think Lance will see there that there's an opportunity for him to just become a bit more of himself. But again, like you say, it comes from confidence of good results. So if we don't see it, we can only criticise him because it will mean that he's not performing well enough.
Today on Navel Gazing with Lance and Sergey. How's this? I'll put this out here, I'll even offer to pay for it. Lance, if you want to show some character, a good Tupac Thug Life tattoo in your stomach. Now that right there would earn you a lot of international fans right away. All right, well, that bit of stupidity aside, where should we wander now? Oh, well, actually, I apologize. Williams Martini Racing finished the 2017 season 5th among the 10 constructors. Do you see them rising or falling in that championship this year, Chris?
Falling 100%.
Oh,
I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Earth below me. All right. Well, where should we wander next? Okay, it's a great name, and I realize it's a name for the sake of naming compared to actual involvement. Aston Martin Red Bull Racing. This, to me, team fun, and nothing new there. We've known that for a long time. Danny Ricciardo, the one-man rejuvenation pill for Formula One whenever it does get boring or too serious. And then you have his counterbalance in young Max Verstappen. What comes to mind, dear Chris, on this team entering into the new season with the Aston Martin branding, the continuation of the Tag Heuer branding on the engine front? There are all kinds of branding going on here. Tell me about this team, Christian Horner's unit, and what they've done, either infrastructure-wise, or what they've shown in preseason testing that leaves you with a hard impression about what might be ahead for them in 2018.
I think we're going to have a really fun year with Red Bull, because if it goes well, and they're definitely starting from a better place than they were 12 months ago. They got last year's car wrong at the start, so they had a lot of catching up to do, and they definitely did it if you look at how strong they were towards the end of the year. So we're going to have a more competitive Red Bull, but if they don't do quite a good enough job, then I think Ricciardo is going to be less willing to sign a new deal, but it depends if there's somewhere else for him to go. Verstappen is going to be less patient because he's been there for a while now. He's shown clearly the talent he's got, and he was at times pretty frustrated in 2017. So as another year rolls by and he's not got a car that's capable of fighting for the championship, that's going to come out again, I think. So there's a chance that it gets really feisty within that team, and you've got two fairly unhappy drivers within a team that is maybe struggling. Then you throw on the fact that its partnership with Renault is just on such thin ice, and it looks like it could
I have never heard that before.
And it looks like it could have a Honda engine in the back in 2019. Christian Horner insists they've got choices there, but I think that's a bit of a front. I think it would get very messy if they were trying to force through a stay with Renault, I think, or they just have to get very, very humble from this point out. And that's if it's just not going too well. I think that's going to be a huge mess, but in a sense, great to watch. The flip side is if where they're starting from and they develop from, then they are fighting for the championship. You've got two incredible drivers who we haven't seen fight for title yet, but know can do it in the same team. So their battle will be brilliant to watch. But at the moment, they get on well. Mixing it with the likes of Lewis and Seb, having Ricciardo and Verstappen there all the time, it would just be stunning to watch from a sporting perspective to have more guys in the mix and such quality talent. And like you say, I mean, Max is clearly one of the future stars of this sport, even though he's already a star of the sport at this age. But Daniel is just one of the most likeable, personable, marketable guys Formula One has, and I think really, along with Lewis, takes its reach, and Fernando, to be fair, within the motorsport realm, but they take the reach far and wide outside Formula One itself. And if Daniel's rewarded with a good enough car, then there's going to be so many people rooting for him. I think it's beautifully poised for Red Bull that, in a sense, however their season pans out, it's going to be really good to watch. And I'd lean towards it being a stronger one. I think you asked who I thought might be the team that jumps above Ferrari. It would be Red Bull. I still think Ferrari will start the year marginally the quicker of the two, but I just look at Red Bull's improvement rate over the past few seasons, and it's normally been from a low starting position, but they've always come on strong, and I think they'll do the same again this year. Whether it's enough to finish as the quickest team and therefore really challenge Mercedes remains to be seen, but there's always, I've yet to lose faith in Red Bull, whereas there's other big teams like McLaren, like Williams, where the faith is long gone, and you have to start a season. Even Ferrari, I've never had faith in Ferrari producing a race-winning car. In a preview I did last year, I said there was likely to